Hey guys, welcome back to Archaeonics. In today's video, let's see how to fix this rusting issues. In this case, this is on the cone set area, but this is actually applicable in any of the surface that is getting rusted on your motorcycle. And let's see how to properly remove this rust, which is actually eating away your metal, and then prime it and then spray paint it in order to prevent further rust formation. And the best part is you can do all this with common tools at your home. So let's see what all we need. I have a masking tape in order to mask all the parts which does not require any painting. Also, I have two sandpapers of different grades. One is of 600 grade and the other one is of 800 grade. We are going to use these two sandpapers to remove all the rust and also give it a finish. And next, we are going to use this isopropyl alcohol for degreasing, and I'll leave the link for purchasing this in the description below. This is not mandatory, but if you can use this will give best result. And the main part, we are going to use this metal primer in order to let the paint stick onto the metal surface and also stopping any further rust formation. And at last, we are going to finish it off by using a spray paint to match the color, and in this case is black, and that's all the components that you require. And the best part is you can buy all of this easily and restore your bike's paint and also protect it against the rust all by yourself at home. So without wasting much time, let's get into the video. Since the area that we are going to work is into very tight space, I'm going to remove this entire tank assembly so that I have some space to work on. At the same time, I can protect the tank from getting any spillage of spray paint that we are going to apply. So let's remove the tank. So removing the tank cover is pretty easy and straightforward, and also I've made multiple videos on the same. Take out the pillion seat and remove the two bolts holding the rider seat, and then take out the rider seat and then start removing all the 6 bolts holding the entire tank cover assembly from both the sides, where 3 bolts from each side. Once this is done, start removing the secondary display connector by slide opening the side panel and disconnect the connector just by pulling it. Once this is done, you can slowly wiggle and remove the tank cover assembly out of the motorcycle. I'm also removing this plastic flap too, which is held by 10mm bolt. Now let's move on to fix this rusting issues. In order to fix this issue, we need to follow 3 simple steps. The first one being removing the rust itself. At a glance, the rust seems to be there only where it is visible, but in fact it spreads through the internal metal surface. That's the reason the paint gets popped, and that needs to be fixed by sanding. The second step is to prepare and prime the surface. This is done after ensuring that all the rust has been thoroughly removed and we have got a bare metal to work on. Now the third step is to paint the surface and make it weatherproof so that any further rust formation can never happen. Let's look into all the steps in detail. Using a flathead screwdriver on chipping of the paint surface, you can see how the rust has been spread across the metal surface on this dominar. If you don't pay attention to this and you just sand down and paint the surface where you can see the rust, then even after you paint multiple times, the rust completely doesn't get removed and it will damage your metal, which can end up in a disaster. I'll start removing all the paint until I see a bare metal, and I'll fast forward this process so that it'll be easy for you. Once all the nearby paint has been chipped off and you can just start seeing the bare metal where there is no rust, you can stop at that point. Now let's start removing the rust itself, and here I'm going to use a 600 grit sandpaper to sand down the rust completely. Make sure that you sand in an X pattern so that you can cover most of the surface, and at the same time make sure that you sand little extra towards the paint surface. This will ensure that you get a smooth finish once you're done with the painting. As you can see, after sanding it down, there is a lot of scratches, but don't worry, we can fix it in the later part. Make sure that you don't leave even a tiny bit of rust stick onto your metal surface, and sand it down completely until you see the complete fresh bare metal. This is a pretty straightforward process, so I'll fast forward it. Now this is how the surface looks, like a brand new shiny metal without any paint protection. Now before getting to the next step, let's clean the surface free from dust and grime that has come out due to sanding. I'm using a microfiber cloth here to collect all the dust. Now the next step is to refine all the scratches that has been generated due to the sanding, and at the same time making sure that you remove all the extra rust which couldn't be removed during the initial sanding. Now in order to refine this surface, I'm switching my sandpaper to 800 grade, which has finer sand particles. Again, the process remains the same. Sand it in an X pattern and don't hesitate to bring it on top of the painted surface that is already there. Once the sanding is done, wipe off all the dirt and grime using a microfiber cloth. You can see after sanding with 800 grit paper, the scratches are almost gone and it is ready for the next step. Before going to the next step, let's mask all the nearby surface so that when you sprayed on the primer and the paint, it doesn't get spilled over to the other parts which are not required to be painted. Again, I'll fast forward this entire process. Now let's clean the surface using isopropyl alcohol. Isopropyl alcohol is one of the best degreaser and it also dries quickly. Spread on the entire surface with isopropyl alcohol and using the same microfiber cloth, clean the surface down, making it free from all the dust, grime and any oil that could be get in touch through your hand while you are sanding. Repeat this entire process 2 or 3 times, making sure that you have thoroughly cleaned the surface and prepped for applying the primer. Once the surface is thoroughly prepped, let's move on to apply the primer. I'm going to use the 089 dark grey primer from Cosmos. So what does this primer actually do is, it creates a strong bond between the paint and the metal surface. But creating this bond is not the only job. Your primer will also ensure that there is no further rust formation on the metal surface that you're working with. Again, if you people want to purchase any of the product that I'm using in this video, the purchase link has been provided in the description. Now after shaking this primer bottle thoroughly and mixing the entire content, spray the primer directly onto the bare metal which is already pre-prepped for primer application. Once the primer is sprayed onto the bare metal, let's wait at least 20 to 30 minutes before doing anything on the metal surface. Now after ensuring that the primer is completely dried, let's move on to the painting part. Now if you find any imperfections on your surface, feel free to use a sandpaper to smoothen it down and then reprime before applying the paint itself. This is the right time to do this. Once the painting is done, you cannot do anything further apart from redoing the entire process all over again. Now speaking of the paint itself, I got hands on Asian Paints, one of the most affordable spray paint. And as we wanted, I got this one in black color. The application process is again pretty straightforward. Thoroughly shake the paint before use and spray it on the surface which need to be painted. Let it dry for at least 20 to 30 minutes and then apply a second coat if necessary. Here, after I wait for 30 minutes and making sure that the paint is completely dried, I'm using a second coat to make a thick layer of paint to match the OEM paint which come out of the factory. Now while the second coat is drying, let me remove all the masking tape and papers which was attached. Now you can see harsh lines like this due to masking. Now this can be fixed very easily. Mask the nearby surface which shouldn't have any paint contact and from a little distance spray down slightly so that the paint feathers away with the original one. If you find any excess, use a clean cloth in order to try to blend the original paint with the paint that we just sprayed on. Now this is how the freshly painted surface looks without any rust and completely like a factory finish. While this side of the painted surface is drying, let me repeat the same process on the other side too. As you can see, this is the rust formation that I have on the other side of my motorcycle and I'm going to use the same process to fix this one too. Now let's see the final results. Now that's how you properly restore your rusted parts just like factory one. I have also restored my side stand too, which you might already seen. Now the products used here is a paint itself and a primer and some isopropyl alcohol, along with some masking tape and sandpapers, for all which the purchase link has been given in the description below. And like with my all videos, if you found this video interesting and informative enough, please feel free to subscribe to Archeonix and follow me on Instagram for more such interesting content.